Hey tubers, welcome back for another adventure. So this is the Kawasaki Bayou 300, and where we left off is we had no pull starter, ropes broken, and they welded the pieces together, so that has a bit of a problem. And then we have the electric starter here, which does a whole lot of nutting. So if I can't turn this thing over, it needs to be towed out back, and I'm thinking parts. So there's a couple of little tricks. First of all, I like to give the starter a few taps. Hear how it's ringing a little bit? So hopefully, if the brushes are hung up, that got those loose. The second thing I recommend is make sure you hook the ground clamp right to the engine. Better yet, the starter, but not that easy from this side when shooting video. And if you do, the spark plug is in, so not only is it turning, it sounds like it has a little bit of compression. Remember, before I did this, I put the basket on and I turned it a couple of times to make sure the valves weren't hitting. Alright, a quick compression test. How well could you guys could see that perfectly. I'm thinking she ain't gonna start with the compression there. Wow, not even, somewhere around 10 psi, that ain't good. So, low compression. Is it the rings? Is it the valves? Do we have a blown head gasket? What's going on? If you put some oil, here it comes, put a little oil in the piston, or in this case a little too much oil in the piston. Sometimes you can tell, you can see how much it comes up. If it comes up a crazy amount, like if it comes up to 50 or so, I'm thinking it's probably the rings. If it just kind of comes up a little bit, that means as we turned it, the valves might have sealed up a little better. If it comes up just a little bit, or if it really doesn't come up at all, then you probably have a valve bent or opened. Normally if it's the rings, it'll come up a bit once you put some oil in there. All oiled up, let's see where we go. Might have doubled from 5 to 10, but I'm not in a good place here. Next thing I like to do, I like to make sure the valves aren't too tight. Sometimes as an engine wears in, or if they run without an air cleaner, particularly the intake valve, you get erosion of the valve seat. So sometimes if you loosen the valves up so they close harder, that helps. And sometimes if you squirt a little oil into the intake, that'll help seal up that valve also. Anyway, the next step is plastic, and that always takes a little bit of time. I also might have some weather blowing in here. Took the plastic off. 2/3 of the bolts were already missing. Took these covers off, one, the other one down there, and checking the valves, and right, they appear to be loose enough. So if you turn, I took the carburetor off also. Sometimes if the carburetor isn't allowing sufficient air in, or if the exhaust is blocked up, your compression won't be any good either. But anyway, turning it over, I still got nothing, but I think what I have going on is, I think the intake valve particularly is messed up. And I think, not being a wise guy or anything, from some of the indications, I'm wondering if we didn't have a little rodent action So the other thing about my experience, and people will debate me on this, is Kawasaki's have a tendency to jump time. I don't know if it's a performance thing, a pieces, parts point of view, the timing chain isn't as good. The amount of adjustment isn't as good. I'm not sure. This motor really, just from the appearance of the exhaust pipe and everything else, I'd be kind of surprised if it's got enough miles on it to have jump time, but I'm sure some people might even mention that. There's two more tricks I have up my sleeve, and let me show them to you. So the first thing I like to do is either just use the socket by itself or a socket to an extension, and I tap on this. That's just to make sure nothing is lodged in there. Sometimes it helps. I've seen it help. Sometimes after doing that, right, suddenly the lash gets tighter, which means the valve settled more into the seat, which took up the lash anyway. So I'm just going to do that. It's a little hard to do holding the camera and wonking on that with a hammer. I mean, don't go crazy and beat on it, but just give it some taps, and hopefully that reseats things. So I did the tapping, I loosened the valves up a little more, I shot oil in there, still no compression. So if you take this little cap off on the Kawasaki 300, you could see the T, you could see the line, and as I do that, even if you go around again, if you get to top dead center, you're never to the point where the valves are closed. Right now the intake is open, but the exhaust is closed, and if I go completely around again, right to the point where my T is beautifully lined up there. There, perfect. Right now my intake is closed, or my intake is open but my exhaust is closed. So what happened to this motor is it jumped time, and the valves probably got hit. As a matter of fact, I could pull this cover off and we could verify that she's not at top dead center. Okay, it looks like they really completely messed up the timing. So that's top dead center, right? And if you look here, this is the mark. These are the marks for the 300. Make sure I'm showing you the right ones. Yeah, you can see the bottom marking right there. That's for the 300. This should be there or there, right? Should be top or bottom, not on the side like that. So they're completely out. I'm just wondering, maybe they didn't hit the valves, and I could get away with just placing that. How the heck did they do that? Because this thing has a peg on it though. How could they be off like that? Right, this thing is pinned. This wheel, well, no, it's correct. When I take it off, I gotta spin this. I gotta get that to top dead center, this to top dead center. And then put that gear back on, right, with the cam in the right place and the piston in the right place. I'm going to give it a shot. Maybe I could get the compression. Maybe they didn't nail the valves. Maybe the compression is going to be okay, and maybe I'm going to pull this one out. I am going to take the adjuster out of here so I can loosen the chain up. Right now the chain is tight, so I think it was put together wrong. All right, let's talk about timing this up, right? Where you want to land, and let's talk about where you want to land, and then we'll talk about how you get there. See that T and that line? That has to be lined up there. You see your 300 millimeters, your 300 cubic centimeter thing, and it says top, and there's a line there. They have to be lined up. Now, you just don't take this bolt off, jump the timing chain off, and do that for a couple of reasons. First of all, you don't want to drop the chain in, so do yourself a favor. Put a wire around this and hang on to the chain, and do it in such a way that you can move the wire, so you can move the chain around within the wire, right? And once again, you want to be careful, because if you drop the chain in there, it means you got to pull the engine, pull the head off, and all the other stuff, and you might not want to do that unless you're sure the valves have been hit. So that's first of all. So that's where you want to land. Now, how do you get there? First thing you want to do is, believe it or not, you really want to turn this so that you're off top dead center. And there's a reason to do that. If you have this at top dead center, then you start turning the cam, trying to adjust where the valves are, you're going to smack them. So you want to get that off of top dead center. You want to turn this such that the cam ends up, you want to pop the chain off and get it out of the way. You want to turn this so that this is at top dead center. The timing marks are lined up. And then carefully, you want to kind of move the chain around, and you might have to keep popping links and going around. Such that this is back up at top dead center. Then once you put it all together, there's that little divot right here. That's a pushed out piece of the cam. That's the keyway, so to speak, that locks into the cam. So you're going to make sure they lock. The cam's at top dead center. You tighten this up, right? Top dead center, top dead center. Put the bolt back in, tighten it up, and now you have one piece left. Now the last thing you got to do is put the adjuster back in. Unfortunately, when you take it out, the plunger's automatically going to come all the way out. If you take out this bolt, slide this out, you got kind of a one-way bearing here. Anyway, you slide it out, you slide the one-way bearing up tight up against the spring, and you slide it back in such that the part with the groove goes where this bolt is, right? And there's a little hole in it that you could see daylight. That way you know it's up and down. And once again, the part where the groove is where the bolt is. You get it in as far as you can. You tighten the bolt down, which goes beyond the groove section of this piston, so to speak, and you could hold on to it. Once you put it in there and release this bolt, once again, you'll see that there's a groove, a slot, right? So as you tighten up the bolt won't tighten up against the piston, so it could continue to move out. Once again, one-way bearing, so it moves out and it keeps your timing chain nice and tight. So you got to put it in there with it compressed, so to speak. You got to loosen up this bolt. This should extend out. You should see that your timing chain gets tight again. Then you tighten this bolt back up. If you don't tighten up the bolt from a timing chain point of view, some interesting things could happen. This thing could start turning. I'm not sure how much trouble that will cost you. Your bolt's probably going to fall out and get lost, and then dirt's going to get in here. So loosen the bolt, let the chain automatically tighten the bolt back up, and once again, because of that slot, it'll all move. It's kind of hard to fight with and control the camera all at the same time, or even to be able to stand behind the tripod with the camera held and do all this at the same time. You got to kind of move and flex and grumble and complain. So let me just explain it that way, and when you get it all apart, you'll see. Trust me. The timing chain adjuster is in, but I didn't release the spring yet. See how we got some movement there? So as I release the spring, right? I don't know if you heard that little click, and suddenly, right, the timing chain is nice and tight, right? So I just did that. I tightened all that, so we're all good. We're getting closer to a compression test. Then I think I'm gonna go with the portable CDI box, maybe a hoot of gasoline into the intake or some starting fluid. We'll see if we can't get some pops out of this. Depends what the compression test says. Okay, let's put back together. The compression gauge is on. We'll see if Harvey's lucky, if those valves got nailed or not. I don't know, what do I got here? I got some compression. I'll take it. I'm going to put it together. Let's see if we can't get a pop and a start out of it. So I want to increase the possibility of this engine starting, right? And it is a little bit low compression, so I'm going to put some oil in there to hopefully up the compression a little more. If you trace the wires coming out from behind the flywheel, you come up with 3 sets, right? 3 yellows, that's for the charging system. Green and red, that does neutral lights and other such trivia. And finally, you get a blue and white, and the second one is green, I think. Anyway, I put little jumpers on them and extended them and put them into the portable CDI pack to increase the possibility of spark and that it will start. I already put some gas into it, so I'm going to set up the camera, give it a little starting fluid, and we'll give this thing a start, see if it's got any life left in it. Here we go. Wish me luck. Just a cool to ya. This is the for the charging system. Let's disconnect that too. This is a cold start, right? I just hooked all this up. Turn this on. Here we go. It still got something. I did not rebuild the carburetor on this. I just smashed one on. I'm back to hiding in the shade. Hot as a hoot out here. Anyway, one could see this thing looked like it had a really bleak future, particularly once I saw that the timing was off. But sometimes you're good, sometimes you're lucky, and sometimes you're both. I think I'm going with both today. We managed to get the timing straightened out, and we managed to get it to start. I'm going to have to redo that carburetor if I actually expect it to run. I'm going to have to do something with the ignition system also. Probably I'm going to hack it. I don't think this thing ever died of... I don't think it died of spark. If I had to guess, I think it died of somebody put the motor back together wrong. The timing chain in there kind of looks like a new one to me, the way it's sitting on the gears and everything else. I think it's a new timing chain. I think somebody put the timing chain in and did it wrong. So this is an example of amateur mechanicship or horrible workmanship, or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You should be seeing this machine again We don't get rain anymore. We just get hot. A lot of 90s, so heat wave material. Not necessarily 3 in a row, but we're getting a lot of hot. Some folks live in places where 90 is trivial. That's what it goes down to at night when they can sleep comfortably. So I shouldn't be complaining, but I'm not used to it. Anyway, in the meantime, I want to thank everybody for dropping by to watch and comment and subscribe. Please remember to keep your feet down, your heads up, and get out and enjoy each and every day. You don't know how many you're going to get, so get out and have a few laughs. Bye now.